electronics. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so my name is Philip Null. I'm with Shibuya, and I'm here with Stephan Hansen. I think you don't really require an introduction, but go ahead and tell us who you are, anyways.
I'm Stephan Hansen, and I'm from Denmark. I'm a professional archer, and recently I switched to Shibuya.
All right. So let's go straight into the questions. We got questions from our subscribers on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And I think we've got over 50 questions, so I'm not quite sure if we can get through all of them, but we'll do our best. So apologies if your question is not answered on this stream. We'll do our best, but it's not possible to get all of them. Let's start out with your gear.
So I
Rundown.
shoot, sure, I shoot
Sorry for
at
that.
PNC Supra Focus XL
Mhm.
at around 28.5 inch drawlength, 60 pounds. Uh, I have a citation, and I have been shooting it a bit, and I just feel like the Super Focus shoots better right now for me, and I'll have to do some more testing. But at the moment, I just feel the Super Focus shoots better for me, and it's a good price point bow, and I think it's easy to sell, and I feel like it's good for me to promote that one too. I shoot, as I just switched to a Shibuya side, a shrewd scope with 7 power. Um, I shoot on stabilization. I shoot a 30-inch front bar with I think 30 ounce, and a 12-inch sidebar with around 18 ounce. And for arrows, well, there's a lot of different arrows because of a lot of different venues, 3D, indoor, outdoor, target, whatever. But at the moment, because it is winter for most of the northern world where we are shooting competitions, it's I shoot 23s or 27s from Easton, and I I kind of try to test between 2318 or 2315 because I just recently switched to Easton, so I need to figure out what works best for me.
Right. All right. And there was a follow-up question about your super focus, and that was about the cable guard. So people would like to know why you're using the steel cable guard and not the carbon one, and how do you know where to set it?
So where to set it, I don't really have a big preference, anything. I usually just put it straight to the right at around 3 o'clock for a right-handed shooter. It just seems that's where it works best for me. I have tried moving it, and sometimes I will have it maybe at 230, like a little bit high right.
Mm.
But I don't really see a huge difference in it.
Right.
I switched to a steel rod because for me, well, on the citation, it already comes with a steel rod. But I switched because I was getting a little bit annoyed with if I traveled or if anything like that, and the bow, or if I had two bows, or if there was too much pressure on the cable guard, it might bend or get destroyed because airline companies doesn't treat the bow cases that well.
Mm-hmm.
So the steel one, just nothing will happen. It's a solid steel rod, and it's pretty heavy. It's not something that I really can feel, but it just seems more solid. And when I shoot the rolling cable guard, um, it won't really change anything. Because if you shoot, I've heard people saying that if you shoot a normal cable guard that doesn't have the rollers, the steel one might have some things in different weathers. I haven't tested it, but I've heard something about it. But because I shoot the roller one that comes standard, it doesn't have any effect. It works in all weathers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's go to this one. How did the switch from super focus to citation affect your shooting? Did you change your form or your grip?
No, I will. As I said, I don't really shoot the citation that much because I feel like I just like the super focused, and the results the super focus had already just proves how good of a bow it is.
Mhm.
And I think it's like 30% cheaper than the citation. So I think just like for me, I don't have to pay for it, so it doesn't really matter the price. But I just think that as good a bow it is and the price point it has, it doesn't. I don't have to change. I feel like the bow is good enough for me. It's as good as it can be, and the citation won't be better or maybe even worse because I feel the super focus is holding for me so perfectly and it shoots so well. So I don't really want to change. So I don't have to change anything special to go from one bow to another. Same setup.
Mhm. All right, let's move on to stabilizers. I think a lot of people were wondering about your stabilizers. Uh, so especially about the weight. Uh, so how much weight do you have on your stabilizer? So I think you mentioned it briefly before. And do you use steel or tungsten weights?
I use steel weights. I and I have 30 ounce in front and 18 on the side.
Mhm.
And I haven't really tried anything with tungsten. I don't see a big reason to shoot it. It's super expensive and I think steel is doing fine enough.
Right.
Um, and if 30 ounce tungsten, I don't even know how much tungsten, how much that would cost, but normally it's fairly expensive. Um, so I don't really have a reason to shoot tungsten. There are some people that like it, but it's just such a personal thing. They think that the mass, because it all compressed more because it's heavier, um, should be better, but I don't really have that feeling.
Mhm.
So I just normal steel ones that comes from Easton.
Okay, and follow up on the same. How do you decide your stabilizer balance? So, what kind of tuning do you do for your balance?
Well, I just keep shooting, and then I move an ounce or put on an ounce or just trying and see if it's better or worse.
Mhm.
If if I feel like it's aiming better, then I might add another ounce. Then if that still gets better, then I might add another ounce. But the issue is also that usually when you put more ounce, the bow will feel better at the beginning because you change something and then you it just feels better. So it takes a little bit of time to kind of get used to the new feeling and figure out if it's better or worse. But I usually just like I right now I have 30 and I had all kind of things before. I had more on the back, more in the front, more like I had all kind of setups. But it's just like many times it's also what you're used to, I think. Like if you're used to almost nothing in the front and a lot
Mhm.
on the side, then adding 1 ounce in the front can be a big thing because you don't have that much. But going from 30 to 31, it won't be that big of a difference because it's already heavy in the front. But
Right.
trying and see if it gets better or worse. It's just figuring out something and then get used to it because if you keep trying, then you will keep like you'll never get really used to what you're having. So I figure out something that I feel like is good and then I try it for some time and then I can change something and then try it for some more time instead of changing all the time.
Right. And I had one question from a Japanese archer who was saying he watched an interview with you where you said you like to or you prioritize a relaxed holding position when you're aiming. But he was wondering how you make that work with such a heavy bow. So how do you think? How much of your strength do you think you're using? And are you really relaxed during the holding with all that weight on your bow?
Well, relaxed, maybe not, since I mean I have to hold against the 15, 17 pounds or whatever I have been holding weight, and also the weight of the bow, of course. But I don't pull and push like some people does a lot. I mostly just aim and then slowly execute the shot.
Mhm.
Some people focus a lot on push and pulling in the bow and all of that, but I don't really do that. I'm mostly focusing on aiming really solid. um, because well, that can be an issue too. Because if when I'm focusing too much on aiming, I don't want to move my release or my arm to get the release to fire. So I kind of like freeze up in the shot a little bit because I get like I focus too much on aiming and then the release will never fire. But I just feel like the aiming, like if it fires in the 10, it'll always hit the 10. So I try to keep it in the middle.
And hang on, I'm just typing a comment for a second there. All right, and I had also one question wondering about whether you do any training, physical training, to be able to help hold that heavy bow. Is
No,
there anything, any
not
muscle training that you're focusing on for that aspect?
no, not really. Because I mean, it seems like a lot, but it really isn't that crazy. Most people can take a, I don't even know how much it would be total, probably like 2 kilos, 5 kilos, 4 kilos. It's really not that much because when you pull the bow back, you kind of hold the weights at the same time. So it's more about getting a little bit more used to it. So if after a couple of days of shooting, it feels more natural and it's not really that heavy. I'm a fairly small guy, so it's not like I'm strong or anything. I just get used to it and I practice enough that it's not really a big deal. So I
Right.
don't really lifting weight routine, anything special to do that. I just add it on and shoot with it because I mean I guess that's my weight routine, just practice.
Right. And that actually is quite a good lead in for. We had one archer on Instagram ask what your daily routine is. Both in terms of how much you shoot, but also I think in your overall daily routine, what you're doing on a daily basis.
Well, I mean, right now it's a little bit different because there haven't been many competitions or anything, so it's hard to keep the motivation really high to practice a lot. But I've been trying to practice every day, just not as much as I maybe would. It was right now in the middle of the tournament season, and Vegas would be coming up soon and all of that. Uh, but usually I would just get up whenever I wake up. It's just around 7 or 8 or something.
Mm.
I usually like to watch news or look at news for like in the morning when I eat my breakfast. Um, I like to follow stocks and things like that. So I use an hour or 2 hours just to pay attention to those things and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I usually go practice for an hour, 2 hours, not too much longer because I feel like I rather practice few times a day instead of one time for a long time. Because I feel if I practice a long time, then at the end I will just get so tired that my muscles and my shooting won't be anything good anyway. I try to
Mm-hmm.
focus on having like quality in my shooting, so I don't just stand there and shoot for 7 hours and the last 4 hours I didn't really actually practice. So I was just shooting my bow just to shoot my bow. So I try to like shoot a couple of hours, maybe get some lunch, then shoot a couple of hours more. If I practice a lot, I'll shoot that like that. But right now, I might just shoot once a day and just hang out. I have a couple of dogs that I can take care of, or things like that. But I try not to practice too much at once, like shoot too many hours at once. Because
Right.
like today, actually, today I was getting a little bit annoyed with my shooting, or I was having fun with my friends practicing, or something like that. And then at the end, we maybe shot for 4 or 5 hours, and just feels so tired at the end. Like the body is just so tired.
Mm-hmm.
And last hour, 2 hours, it was just like just practicing just because it was funny, and it didn't really matter too much. But sometimes for me, it can be okay to shoot like that. Like when you go outdoor, for example, from shooting 6 months indoor, then I like to shoot a lot more just to get used to outdoor. It's not like you have to focus on anything. It's more like just getting used to the long distance. So I shoot more hours just to shoot. But when it's like getting competitions and all of that, I feel like it's better just to focus on having quality in the practice instead of just to shoot. I never count arrows or anything like that.
Really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
I don't feel like I have to. I practice the amount that I want to practice, and I don't care if it's 100 or 400 arrows. It doesn't really matter much to me. I don't really pay attention to that. Because sometimes it might be that I just take my bow out because I have a 18-meter range at the house, and I will just take the bow and shoot a couple of practice ends, and then shoot a 30 arrow round, and then go inside again, just to go out and get the feeling of a little competition, and then go inside again, and then like I have full focus on those 30 arrows.
Mm-hmm.
So those 30 arrows might be the same as 60 or 90, where you just shoot. You don't really focus on scoring anything, but I'll go out and shoot and fully focus and maybe have a competition with shooting some score or something like that. And then I'll do it again later in the day, but I won't count how many arrows I shoot in a day. I have no idea. I've never really counted, only if I had to from a coach from many years ago.
Interesting. All right, we'll go back to a few gear questions again. So I have a question that says, what kind of aiming dot do you use, and do you change it from target to indoor or other field or whatever?
So, well, I can see here, since I have the side, it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if anything. I have a small fiber that is. I've been shooting that.
What diameter is that?
It's a 39,000, I believe. It's the biggest one that is still able to bend around the scope. Kind of. It's a little too stiff, but it can just do it. But I shoot that for indoor, outdoor, field, that kind of stuff. For 3D, I'll shoot something different, just because it's 3D and you usually need a bigger scope and a smaller fiber, so you can see more of what you want to hit, because the lighting and everything is so different. But for target, indoor, outdoor, 3D, field, sorry, it's always like this 7 power and a 39,000 fiber. I've been doing that for quite a few years now, actually.
Mm. And what kind of magnification and peep size do you use?
So peep, I shoot a 1, I guess it's called, a clarifier, and the size, I am not super sure. It's the second smallest from Hamsky. I don't really know the size. I just take it out.
Do you put it straight onto the scope diameter, or do you have a gap between the peep and the scope? So
how do you mean?
The relative size of the scope and the peep. When you look through the peep, do you have any room around your scope, or?
It's the same size as the scope, I think, actually.
So you pretty much match it to the size of the scope.
Yeah. I don't really think about that, because for me it was more about if it was clear or not, or if I can aim good. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess if it's too big, it's hard to center it. But I have never really tried at really big people, so I wouldn't really know how that would work. But yeah, I usually just mostly try to see how good is the aiming with this size people. For some time ago, I was shooting the smallest people without a clarifier, so it was very clear everything, but just a little bit low lighting, and I couldn't see the target. Like, it would get so dark super easy.
Right.
So that's why I went to a little bit bigger people and then a clarifier, just to try to be able to see more at worse light. So like in Vegas, there's no really good light, but I can see really easy anyway. For Neem, for example, when there is the spotlight right above the target, it wouldn't really matter that much because I would be able to see it anyway. But I just don't want to change and something every time, because you kind of have to get used to it all the time.
Mm-hmm. And our very own Hiroshi Tanebe in the comments just asked, Stephan, do you keep the scope on during practice? or do you ever take it off or blank bail, I guess?
No, I never do. I'm actually I might if it's bad weather outside and I just feel like I want to shoot a couple of arrows. I'll put a target inside and I'll have this stuff on, but I will blank fail basically.
Mhm.
Uh, but I don't do it like on purpose. Just go out and shoot it. It's
And
I don't know.
you don't take the magnification out of your scope or anything.
No, never, never, no. It feels too weird, and I try to because I think archery has to be some kind of fun. And if I do too many things like blank bill, I feel like I would get too bored. So I try to keep some fun to do. So I try to score all the time because I like competition. So I almost score all the time. Like
Hmm.
count how much I can shoot in 30 arrows. If I shoot really bad, I won't score because I don't want to see how bad it is. But because
Right.
already I won't be very good. But if I shoot kind of okay, or if I try something, I will try to score and then see if I shoot well with this new thing that I changed or whatever.
Okay. And since we're talking about your scope, what scope are you using, and how does it mount to the CPX site? Because the comment was the archer in the comments hasn't used the CPX site long, and he was wondering about the triangular mounting piece, and if you needed any special technique in mounting it or any adapter or anything.
Actually, it was surprisingly very easily. So on the Shrewd scope, they have like cut out. I don't know if I can show that here or anything, but in here they have like cut out a piece of the aluminum. So the the part that attach from the scope to the side is like attaching inside the aluminum. So even if I took the screw out a little bit, it won't actually move much because it's like stuck inside a. They kind of like cut out. I don't know how to explain it very good, but they there's a screw that you screw in from this side, and then basically you just screw it tight here, and then that's all. That's all I did. It was very very easy, and it won't ever move. It's impossible because the screw is very long and it's very tight, so it's basically impossible to move.
Yeah, let me just add to that. The end of the scope rod holder, which is triangular, the end is actually a hex cutout with 5/16 width. So that fits on the cutouts that most scopes these days come with. It's something that I think Sherlock started back in the day, and now Shrewd is doing it. I think the Lancaster, the what do you call it again? The Apex scopes are using them, and a lot of scopes are have that cutout, so it fits perfectly in there, and you
Very
just
easy.
screw it on, and it stays level.
Yeah, exactly. That was better. I wasn't sure what it was called.
Yeah. um, all right. On aiming, do you aim consciously or do you let the dot just float?
No, I focus a lot on where is the dot. So I maybe I actually do it too much sometimes, but I try to focus on keeping the dot in the middle.
Mhm.
Um, like an 18 meters, I can usually keep it easily inside the like the big 10, the Vegas 10 or whatever, like the recurve 10. Um, so it will kind of just float around inside there because I know if the shot just breaks around there, it will be a 10. But like if I get nervous or something, I try to focus more on executing the shot because that's usually the issue that when it starts to move too much,
Mhm.
then you kind of get too nervous to make the shot fire because it's too much in the nine all the time.
Mhm.
Just try to focus more on executing the shot correctly instead of just focusing on aiming in the middle because it's very hard when you get nervous.
Right. I think we'll follow up on that. We've had a few question about getting nervous and about target panic in particular. So The impression is that you had a struggle with target panic before, and you overcame it and came back pretty strong in the indoor game. Um, do you have anything that caused it, and how did you solve it?
I didn't. I don't know what caused. Well, I wanted to win, of course. Like it made me nervous, so it was just a combination of many things, and I felt like I was just not confident in my shooting and myself. Um, it's something that can happen like all the time. Like you've seen archers where it gets hard at some points in the match, or it's just like all the nerves that comes together at the wrong time. Um, and I don't know. For me, it's just about like getting back to the right focus of your shooting, getting back to practice and figuring out how you can shoot without being scared of shooting.
Hmm.
And for example, shooting a hinge usually, because for me, a trigger is where the issue kind of starts because I would kind of punch the trigger or freeze up in the shot or something like that will happen. Um,
Right.
but with the hinge, I don't have anything to push to make the release fire. I just have to keep rotating. Um, so usually for me that helps. But I mean, when my worst target panic are happening, it's just back to practice and kind of get over it and get some confidence in your shooting.
Right.
Because usually what happens is you start lack of confidence, like you start get scared of your own shooting, and you're getting scared of shooting a nine. But if you are confident enough, you know that you can shoot a 10, so you don't really get scared of shooting the nine. And that's usually for me that's the issue. If something is not set up right or my technique is not set up shooting the correct way,
Mhm.
I just get too nervous and too scared of shooting, and then all mess starting.
So the hinge releases were one of the factors that uh, help you execute properly when you have some nervosity. Do you have any tips on mastering hinge release aids?
For me, is usually just about keep rotating your hand, like keep because I don't really pull in my back to make the shot fire.
Hmm.
I kind of like move my fingers a little bit more. So for me, it's more about just keep rotating and keep focusing on making the release fire. It will go off at some point.
Hmm.
Um, but an issue for me sometimes is I get a little bit too tight in my hand, too tense. And then it's even harder to make it fire because your hand just doesn't move the normal way. So kind of like try to relax and then just make the same movement all the time. Because it's like a repetition thing. Like you just have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing the same thing. So it just like gets easy at some point.
Right. And on the other side of the spectrum, do you have any tips for trigger releases? What's your main focus when you're using a trigger?
Well, kind of the same. It's for me, it's about not punching the trigger. I mean, there is some people that do it on purpose and it works great for them.
Hmm.
Uh, Usually, it will stop at some point because you'll get too nervous at some point, or the wind will have a factor in it, or something can happen when you're punching a trigger that will trigger some target panic. But for me, it's about just uh, like putting your finger on the trigger and then just keep like squeezing or keep like putting tension in your hand and just remember how like don't get stressed on a too long shot. Usually either let down. If you can't let down, just keep moving and the shot will fire at some point.
Hmm. And how do you decide whether to use a trigger or a hinge release?
Well, for me, it's just what most comfortable when I get nervous because
Mhm.
I mean I don't win anything in a qualification or anything where I'm not nervous.
Mhm.
So I don't really care too much if I drop a couple of points extra in the qualification because if I can gain those couple of points in the final, it's worth it. So for me, it's about figuring out what works best under pressure. which you kind of have to go to competitions to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. I see. So let's change gears a little bit and talk about tuning, because we got a lot of questions for gear and tuning. And some of our users wanted to know which tuning methods do you use? Sort of like paper, bare shaft, torque tuning, walkback.
Usually, I kind of use both of paper test and bear shaft. So I try to like match both up. So the paper test is perfect and the bear shaft is perfect, and then usually I'll be shooting good. Um, that's both mostly main thing I'm doing. Um, it usually is enough. I will try to like move the rest a little bit, left or right, up and down. If I can see that there is like a pattern of how the arrows are hitting. If they're hitting nothing up and down, but some left and right, I will move my rest either to the right or left a little bit, and then see if it's getting better or worse. Um, and then the same up and down. If I can see that the arrows keep hitting up or down, then I will try to move my wrist a little bit up or down and see if it works. If I move it up and it works, I will move it a little bit more up and see if it works even better. If it doesn't work better, I'll move it back. Or if I move it down and it gets worse, then I'll just move it up instead. And just like a tiny little things that you can do during the practice and see, does it get better or does it get worse?
Mm-hmm. So you basically you're just starting with the rest and just spending a lot of time on tuning and getting it right by shooting a
Yeah,
lot.
just like small things by shooting. Well, it also depends on how I shoot. Like if I can shoot and I'm shooting like good 300s or whatever score all the time, like personal best scores or something. Of course, I won't really change anything special because I don't really care if the arrow rotates on the way to the target as long as it hits the middle. Um, but if I can see that my scores aren't exactly as good as I feel like I'm shooting,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll figure out what can I do to make it better. If you can feel that you shot a, let's say, a 295 indoor round, and you know that you made 5 mistakes in your own technique, or you didn't aim in the middle of those 5 arrows, then of course there's nothing that can tune out of your mistakes. Of course, they can be a little bit more forgiving, maybe, but making mistakes is also your own fault. So you need to work on those things instead. Um, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like looking at, is it me or is it the bow?
Right.
So I have to see like where is the shot firing. If the shot, I'm like, okay, that's in the middle, and if it's not in the middle, okay, let's see if we can change that. But I usually try to feel where is it gonna hit. If I can feel, okay, that was not the greatest shot, and it should be a 9 somewhere, then I mean that's my mistake, and I just have to do it better myself. Sometimes not blame the bow, but blame me
Right.
instead.
Let's talk about arrows for a bit. What's your draw length and what length and weight of arrows are you using for target?
So I shoot around 28.5 inch drawlength. That's 60 pounds. And I mean, arrows, right now I shoot, right now I'm testing Martin Damspo's arrows just to see how they're shooting. It's a 2318 at, I think they will be like around 30 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shooting 2315s, a little bit shorter, just to see like what works best. Because I was shooting okay, but I was feeling like there was more. Like there was something that I could do more, and I couldn't really tune the bow much different
Mm-hmm.
to make it better. Sometimes I'm outdoor. I don't really know what I'm gonna shoot yet. I was shooting one competition that I shot with completely wrong setup arrow. It was shooting okay in practice. I felt like it wasn't that bad, but it was just a lot left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And in the competition, it was really obvious that it was like that. So I was lucky that Rio Weil wanted to borrow me some of his arrows, that they are 410 spine at like 29 inch extends. And those were just grouping so much better. Like it was just like a day and night in how my shooting. Like I went from shooting a lot of nines and not shooting very well to shooting a 600 the day after at the indoor Dakota Classic round. And I mean, if I was shooting the same setup as I was before, I would probably shoot like a 595 or 590 or something like less. Definitely not the same. So there was just something in the arrow that I had to figure out what is better in a different spine arrow. But since I only just changed to Ethan, I still need some time to figure out what is the perfect setup.
All right, and I think you use an overdraw or rather long rest. Why do you use that?
Well, I've just been trying to figure out what works best, like moving it forward or backwards, like putting it all the way back, and it just seems like my bow is shooting better at that place, like all the way back. Plus, I have I was shooting a fairly short arrow, and it kind of instead of the rest would go on the point, it gave more space to have the arrow on the launcher plate. So I just tried and see what works best, and then just kept using it the same way.
Okay. Hiroshi actually has a follow-up question for your arrows. So you were talking about the 410 extend arrows. Are those cut from the nock end or from front end only?
Yeah, because they're standard extends, I cut 3 inches off the back to make them a little bit stiffer, and then at 29 inch.
Do you have any reason why you're using the regular extends and not the Pro Tours?
No, not really. I haven't tried the Pro Tours yet. I'll try the point. I don't really. I was just looking at what were other people using, and I was seeing other people using normal extends, and then I thought, I'll just do the same. Since it works for the other people, then why shouldn't it work for me?
All right. Okay. I have one funny question that I actually got from multiple people, and that's why do you not use a bowsling? And have you ever dropped your bow by mistake?
I don't use it just because I don't really need to. I don't grip the bow, but with all the weight and all of that I have on the bow, it doesn't really fall forward that much. So just kind of like I will hold my hand like with my fingers a little bit out like here, and then when it shoot, it's kind of like just drops out in my fingers. Like I'll just kind of catch it with my fingers, but it's not like it doesn't really go out super hard, so it's not super hard to catch it. I have used it when I was younger, but I was kind of getting annoyed of having that thing on my fingers all the time. So I just took it off and started shooting without. And actually, I have dropped it, I think, once because my release kind of misfired, or maybe something broke, the loop broke, or something happened that I was like on when I was drawing back, then the bow just went off. And of course, I didn't have time to catch the bow, and the bow fell down. But usually, I will kind of like grab around the bow when I draw back. So if anything happens, nothing, like it won't fall.
Right. And you were showing your grip hand a little bit. Do you have any specific focus point when you're gripping the bow? Are you supporting it on a point, or are you supporting on a larger area?
I don't really have anything special. I just put my hand in the bow, and whatever feels like natural is where my bow hand is going to be. So it's not really I focus on putting it somewhere. I just put my hand in, and whatever feels natural. So it's more repeatable. Like I can do the same thing all the time. So I don't really have any special way I do it.
Okay, so you don't have any secret sauce on your grip hand.
No magic pill.
And someone was asking, you use grip tape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you have any like favorite type of grip tape, or I mean brand, I
Not,
guess?
not really. It's usually just have to be very thin because I
Hmm.
don't want it to be too big. So just it's thinnest that I can find. I
Hmm.
don't the brands. I usually just go to a sports store and see whatever they have.
And
Um,
do you use the sticky type, or more the smoother?
it's a little sticky, I guess, but not too much. I don't really know too much about it. I usually just go and find something that I feel like that works fine.
Mhm.
It's for me. It's just the main part is it has to be as thin as possible because you can get some
Right.
like tape that would be for like a bike handle or like a tennis catcher or whatever that they are very thick
Mhm.
and I don't feel like that would work very well. So I just try to find whatever is the thinnest because the aluminum is very slippy if you are outside it's raining or if your hand get a little bit sweaty or something like that.
Mhm. Right. Um, okay, and when you're aiming, where's your center of gravity? Do you have it a little bit to the front or to the back, or?
Well, many people have seen that I lean back a little bit usually,
Mhm.
just because it's not something that I really think about, and I can't really help it since there's so much weight on the bow.
Mhm.
Like if you imagine if you're holding something like a really heavy weight or whatever, your body will kind of compensate for holding that. So
Right.
so your center of gravity will be more centered. Like it will be more like where the balance is better. So I just naturally moves back a little bit just to hold up the weight, just
Right.
to have the more balance. Because if I move forward, I would like tip over and hit the ground instead. So I just move back a little bit just to like make the balance way better, way easier. But
Mhm.
it's like if I added more weight, I would probably move more back, but I wouldn't think about it. It's just like whatever is naturally happens.
Right. And do you have more weight on one foot, or?
I don't really know. I haven't thought too much about it. I might have a little bit more on my right leg since I've moved back a little bit. That the balance point will be a little bit closer to my right leg, so I believe I would have a little bit more, but I'm not
Mhm.
sure. I haven't checked it or anything.
Right. And what do you focus on after you're in the anchor position and you're expanding? What's your focus on there, and which direction are you expanding in? Are you pulling straight back, or are you rotating,
But
or?
I don't see that's the thing about like just like relaxing. I don't really pull a lot when I'm aiming. I don't try to like execute by pulling. So when I draw back and I aim, I just like anchor and then hold against the weight or the pounds of the bow,
Mhm.
uh, and then I just keep holding that and then moving my fingers to for my hinge. Um,
Right.
I feel like if I try to pull back too much, then my aiming will start to get worse, and I won't be able to aim as easy. So I just mostly try to stay and then get the release off.
Mhm. Do you have anything in your tuning that you try to optimize for stabilizing your aiming? So the question asked was, I prioritize my draw length and weight balance to stabilize my aiming. Do you have anything else that you consider?
Not
Basically, to stop your aiming point.
yeah. Just for me, it's just adding or removing more weight. I mean, it can be moving like putting a offset like for the front bar, putting it 10 degrees or 5 degrees down. I don't have that on right now. On this bow, it feels better that it's straight,
Mhm.
but um, I don't really change. I mean, putting the draw length correctly and those things, but I don't really change anything special to aim better on my like on the draw length or something. I try to make it comfortable and make it best for me to execute the shot. And then the aiming part is where I put the weights on this on my stabilization or in those things.
Right. Let's see. Right. Bit of a gear question again, but I think a lot of people are interested in your release a lot. Why did you change your release to stand, and what's your initial impressions? Which model are you using?
Right now, I'm using I think it's called Morix, a hinge. I'm kind of switching a little bit and trying to figure out what works best. Um, I just like how it shoots, and I I feel like it's pretty comfortable, but there's still some things that I need to get used to because shooting the same things for some time, it takes time to get used to something else. Um, for me, it's just about trying and keep practicing, and that's what I'm doing right now, which is lucky to change while there is all this Corona going on, so I have more time. Whereas right now it would be kind of tough to change something at if it was normal, because they would have 3 or 4 competitions in January and the same in February and the same in April and March and whatever. Um, so so for me, it's lucky that I have a good time right now just to try and figure out what works best and what size or what release is best for me.
And what kind of strings are you using? You changed your string sponsor, I think, too.
Yeah,
The question originally was if you build your own strings and what kind of material you use, but
yeah. See, that's the funny part. I don't even really know. I guess it's BPY. I'm not actually sure, so I should be careful what I'm saying. But I, that's why I shoot for somebody like Gas Bowstring. I trust them fully, and I don't really know exactly how they do it or what they do, but it works. So that's all I care about.
so you're basically just using gas custom strings and you don't customize anything on them specifically.
No, no, I ask for a set of string for a super focus, and that's what comes. That's it.
Right.
I never made strings. I've never tried to build a string, and
Mm,
you just need so much equipment to do it that for me it's better to leave it to the professionals, and I can do something else instead. I can go and do what I'm good at.
right.
uh,
And and you
yeah,
don't customize the strand count or anything.
no, no, I just no. They have. I mean, I just asked for a set of strings, and that was it. That's what I got. So they might have 100 stands. I wouldn't know. Well, I would probably know since it would be way too thick. But I, I I know what they're doing, and I know what kind of shooters they have, and they have been having a lot of success, and I trust them fully. So I leave what they know to them, and then I do what I know.
Right. And Hiroshi just asked again the clicker question. I think we lost the audio on the first question that was about using a click on a hinge release. So let's go over that again. So do you use a clicker on a hinge release? If so, when does it click?
I don't right now. I do sometimes, but usually it feels a little bit better without the click. But sometimes I can get a little bit lost without click. So for me, the issue with the click is I kind of freeze up in the shot a little bit because
Mm.
when it clicks, I know that fairly shortly the release is gonna fire. Like I don't have to move a lot, and then the release will fire. Where without the click, I can just like keep moving, and then the release will fire at some point. But with the click, for example, especially like in field archery,
Mm.
uh, if it's just a little bit up or downhill, I feel like I get way too lost without the click. Like I don't know, I don't have any idea when it's gonna fire. So I I wouldn't be too comfortable to just keep rotating or because when it's all flat and all on a target, I kind of start at the same way all the time. So I know that the release is going to fire pretty much where my fingers will be at this point. So with 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 the clicker up and down heel or something, I can start the shot every time the same place. So I just draw back, make it say click fairly quickly, and then kind of moves a little bit, and then it will fire. But without the click, if it goes too much up and down, I might start a place with my hand that makes it hard to make it release fire. I have to move too much. So the shot will take way too long, and then I will not hit the middle, most likely.
And when you do use a clicker, do you have it go off before you settle in your anchor or after your anchor?
Pretty much as I settle. So I'll get into anchor and then it clicks right away.
Okay.
So because I don't want to like move into too much into the click, I'll get into the anchor and it's gonna say click right away.
And we just got a question from 1R in the comments. Can we see you do World Archery 3D anytime in the future?
Most likely not. It will be hard for me to answer that really easy. But the problem is it takes a lot of work. You have to judge distance, and I don't judge distance. I mean, the people that does that, it's a different kind of thing. Like you have to judge so much, and I don't even know anything about it. So I would have to do a lot of work, and to qualify for Denmark, I would have to shoot like 3 or 4 competitions, like 3 competitions in Denmark. So that's 3 or 4 weekends. I could be in the States or in a World Cup or somewhere else shooting a competition that is a lot bigger. Because for me this is my job, and I need to do a living of this. So I need to go to the competitions that has a lot of prize money or a lot of publicity or something like that.
Right.
So I cannot spend my time too much being in a forest in Denmark and shoot some animals. It sounds a little hard, but it's really how it is. I need to do a living of this, so I need to go to the right tournaments for me.
All right, let's get into some more esoterical questions before we wrap this up. So what was the deciding factor that helped you get to the top?
Well, for me, it's about passion. I had always had a lot of passion about archery, and I always liked to practice, and I always like to be the best. So trying and keep trying to figure out how to be the best is really what made me where I am now. I like to keep fighting and keep pushing, and when things are not going very well, I get pissed and I keep trying harder, which can be an issue because sometimes I will practice too much, and then it's kind of like a bad cycle that I get more tired and I shoot worse, and then I get more angry and then I shoot worse. And but for me, it's just that I hate losing, and I have a lot of passion for what I do, and yeah, basically like that.
And were there any points in your career when you felt that you'd leveled up or reached the next level?
I started very young, so it's been a long journey. I started when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I was always losing in the beginning because there was one of my friends now that he was a year older when I was starting, and he beat me every time. So when I started, I remember actually a tournament that I beat him the first time in a shoot off, and then kind of like from there I started winning sometimes, and then he started beating me again some other times, and then I started like slowly getting better, but had a lot of competition. And then he got older. I was 10 and he was 11, so he changed into a higher category in Denmark. So I had 1 year that I was like undefeated. Basically, I was winning everything and breaking all of the records because I was the oldest in that category. And then the year after, I was getting better, and he went to some other places. Like he didn't really shoot too much more after that. But um, from there, like I could start to see that I was getting kind of good at it, but I was still super young. But then we had like a Scandinavian championship in my town in 2007 or 8 or something like that. And I was too young for that category. We was cadet, and I think I was, let's say, 13 or 12. And the categories was 1 year after it was supposed to be you shooting in that category, but they don't have a category for me at that tournament. So I was shooting with the older guys, and I got third in that tournament, and I was doing pretty well, but I was still very young, so I was still like I had to take some time to get better. But I was trying to take it slow, like don't rush it. And then I kind of got selected to go to a world championship and some other competition the year after, 2009. I think it was the year after. And then from there, I could see that I was kind of like building up and getting better, but still trying to figure out um, like if this is gonna be like what I want to do in the future. Like, but I didn't really know I could do this professionally. I didn't know that there was any money doing archery. So I was still just trying to be the best, but not necessarily being a professional archer. I was just trying to be the best that I could be. Um, and then when I got world champion 2011, I think that was really the turning point of my career. I got cadet world champion in Poland for 2011, and of course from there I knew that I was doing well, and I was having good results, but I actually didn't know that I could be professional still. I didn't know that I could make enough money doing this for a living. So I was just focusing on being the best that I could be and shoot the competitions that I could. Um, but then, like, things slowly move on, winning a couple of more competitions, and then world champion in Denmark was the point where I became professional, basically, because I got better contracts and I was something in the senior category now. Um, so I was actually going to study in like a couple of months after that world championship in Copenhagen in 2015. But then I could see that I had potential and I financially be professional. So I thought I talked with some friends and some people, and I could see that 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 I had a chance to at least try 1 year to be professional. So I took 1 year and didn't study or anything, and it turned out pretty well. So I thought, let's just take another year, and now we are in 5 years. So going okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think we're doing all right. All right. One last one that we got in the comments just now from Paul Sibley. He's stirring the pot with this question. Was last year's lucky dog inside out?
It was close, and I totally understand the judges. So the reason why I called the judges down to check it again is because I felt like it had a chance. Like it was very, very, very close. And he looked at it from a distance, and I felt like he didn't give it a chance. So I talked with the judge, the guy that is the president of NFAA is also a judge, and I talked with him afterwards, and he said it was totally fair that I did it. I didn't do it because I was like, of course I wanted it in, but I wasn't super pissed that they called it out. I was just annoyed that he didn't try. He didn't even look at it. So I wanted them to like really look at that arrow and see if it actually was in or out. And totally fair that it was out. I mean, of course, I would look positive on my arrow, but it was very close. I cannot say if it was in or out. It was close enough that I think they should look at it again.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's part of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when they decide. So they decided if I had to go into a competition shooting for $50,000 to $100,000. So I at least wanted them to be sure that it was out, and I felt like it was close enough that they weren't sure from a distance.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I think that's
Sure.
a good length. And I think it's getting late for you too.
Yeah, yeah.
How's your
But
jet lag?
no problem. I'm fully awake.
All right. That's great. Well, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate having you on here. It's been a good chat. I think everyone had fun. And yeah, hope to see you at the competitions soon. What's your next plan?
So I'm actually in Denmark to reset my days in USA, so I can go to the competition that is in Yankton, the Rushmore, whatever it's called.
Rumble. Yeah,
Rumble, that was the word. In February. So that's my plan to be there.
great. We'll
Because
see.
if
We'll
I
see you
shoot knee,
compete
I
there.
cannot do the other one because
Uh,
of some.
what were you saying? Sorry.
If I shot Neem, which is in a couple of weeks, I wouldn't be allowed to go to USA to shoot it because of the current situation and rules. So I
Oh,
have
okay.
to shoot either of them.
I see. All right. Well, good luck in the Rushmore Rumble, and
Thank you.
we're looking forward to seeing you compete.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right. And